Thursday's Express and the 90s rock band The Verve were right, it turns out. The drugs don't work, Josh.
They don't work. So new research has found that serotonin is not the key to depression, because that's and that's why over the last, since the 90s, 1 in 6 adults now take antidepressants.
SSRIs, right?
Yeah, and 2% of teenagers are now being prescribed them as well. It's been a huge increase. But now they're saying, actually, all this research over thousands of people are saying they didn't just test this one thing. They tested this is several decades of research, by the way.
Yeah.
And
so is this a kind of meta survey, or like a big
meta survey, but also doing different things. So one of the things they did is they researched levels of serotonin in the blood, and they basically didn't discover any difference whether someone was depressed or not. So someone with low or high, the two didn't sort of seemingly correlate to that. They also looked at studies where they artificially lowered serotonin.
Yeah.
Didn't make any impact in depression.
And are these people who are on the pills?
These are people who weren't on any pills,
okay.
and so they lowered serotonin. So, and then another thing that they did is that stressful life events seem to have much more importance about whether people actually get depressed or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So, guess what has happened? A spokesman for the Royal College of Psychiatrists says, actually, they're massively effective. Hey, Big Pharma. Got to the old.
It's very interesting. I mean, a lot of people have been saying for decades, since it first came in, Prozac was the first big one of these, right? But now there are loads of different variations on them. But when it first came in, right from the get-go, a lot of people saying, I think this is just a placebo effect, that people are being told that something is working for them. I don't know. I mean, it's never been adequately explained. I don't know, I may be getting confused, but I think they weren't even intended, they weren't even developed for this, but it was one of those things where they found that, a bit like, or I might be getting confused with the impotency one, which is Viagra.
I can't remember what it's called. Is it called Viagra?
Viagra? Simon seems to be...
Check with your base. Check with your base, quickly.
But anyway, that often happens, and that doesn't matter particularly, but often they try things out, and if it works, then they try and work out why it might be working. Do you see what I mean? I don't know whether they've been doing that with this, but it's always been this cloud of suspicion.
I'm amazed they've got 85 to 90% of the public believing that depression is caused by low serotonin or chemical imbalance. I've never believed it personally. I'm not a doctor since the incident, but I do. I always suspected they were harmful potentially. I mean, I knew someone who claimed their father had committed suicide because some of them can create suicidal ideation, and then we don't know what they do. If someone even admits here, we don't know what they do to the brain. I mean, that's quite important. I've always felt, go back through literature, there's always been depression. Look at Melville on the first page of Moby Dick. Ishmael talks about having the hypos, and he cures it by going to the sea. That was the old school solution. So life... It's an existential problem. We know we're going to die. There's a lack of meaning in the culture. We don't believe in God anymore. So, of course... And then you've got objectively miserable circumstances. I used to sign on in Biker in Newcastle. That's objectively miserable. Yeah. Now I do a lot better. I'm at GB, I'm working out, and now I've replaced depression with a kind of untethered anger, and it's a lot better. So my point is, if your life's going well and you're working out, you're doing your exercise and all that, then get back and say, I'm depressed. I'm not saying there's no one's depressed. I'm not trying to undermine it.
Well, it does.
But it's not simple as take a
pill. But it does correlate with people who are unable to take those kind of measures, who are, for instance, housebound in some way or other, like who are carers and can't just leave the house and all that sort of thing. It is. I do find it interesting. You're right, but philosophers throughout the years have often been a bit prone to depression, and certainly like the big German ones who seem to sort of dominate a lot of our thought now, your Schopenhauers and your Nietzsches and so on. They didn't really live great lives. You know, they would dwell on things being bad. They would write great books about things being bad. They would present very well-articulated propositions for why things were intractably bad. But they didn't really come up with solutions, whereas people who go to the gym or just, like, go sea swimming every morning tend to feel good.
Well, here's a good solution. Have 5 kids.
Yeah.
You will never contemplate anything to do with existence. You will just be too busy. Constantly.
The weird thing is, I mean, that is true as well, isn't it? There's much lower rates of suicide when people are busy. Yeah.
I'm so happy in my trapped
exhaustion. I also do wonder as well, though, you know, depression, I don't know if this is a bit twee or quaint, but it feels like the clue is in there. Take the pressure off a little bit. Whereas sometimes there is, you know, depression is trying to slow you down and make you take the pressure off. But if you take these pills, society says, don't worry, you can carry on working 12 hours a day and you know, trying to live at this crazy high speed that society demands of you.
It might be a sign you should do something. And I don't want to undermine anyone who's like feeling, or you know, whatever the word is, you know, not say, there might be people out there saying, shut up, Nick, I'm dealing with something really bad. And it is very bad. But I'm just saying, it looks like these drugs are questionable, and it looks like the chemical imbalance thing is questionable, so there may be other solutions.
I think absolutely right. Could, in the end, turn out to be good news.